Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to race number 14 of the season for the FTF Grand National Series presented by Splash and Go Graphics. It's our third road course stop of the season as we are north of the border up here in Canada at the Montreal Raceway. Seth Cole alongside of Samuel Dyer. And Sam, we've seen some pretty interesting road course races so far this season. We, of course, had the Homestead road course. You and I covered Spa a few weeks ago. How is Montreal going to play into this season?
This is going to be probably, in my opinion, the most difficult road course for these drivers. They're racing an F1 course, and I know Spa was kind of an F1 course, but Spa was much wider and gave these drivers a lot more room to work with. Spa is a lot of a tighter, a lot more chicanes, and this is going to be very difficult for these drivers. The one constant that we've had in all of our road course, though, Blake Reynolds is fast.
He is. He is on the pole for this one. Was the only driver that was up there in the 139 lap times, the mid 139 lap times. Comes in the points leader, 10 points over Derek Justice. We, of course, saw him take his third win of the season last week to Derek Justice's 4 wins. And interesting front row, though, because that race we covered at Spa, Brandon Hawken, a go-or-go-home driver, took the checkered flag. He is going to be on the outside of the front row, so maybe a little competition for Reynolds this week.
I mean, their lap times were only about a tenth off, which is here at Spa, a tenth is almost like having a hundredth off. So it's going to be a close battle between these guys. And the rules for this race slightly different from the last couple of road courses we've had. And Seth, I think you got some of the news on what's going on with these rules.
Absolutely. As we are green, it's a standing start for these road courses. But yeah, according to what we have heard, a lot of the cautions we had back at Spa, the announcement's been made that regardless of incidents that take place here for the first 20 laps, there will not be a caution thrown unless absolutely necessary. At lap 20, they will throw a competition caution, let these drivers get bunched back up. And all drivers that have incidents in the first 20 laps will have a chance to get back into the lead group. So these drivers technically are racing to that competition caution at lap 20, but you and I, we observed these guys in practice, and there was really nobody that was able to conquer this racetrack. Even some of these guys like Reynolds and Hawkins were having some issues.
Yeah, these guys were able to run maybe a couple of laps cleanly, and then they would start to have issues. And I'm looking on track, and it looks like one of the cars is starting from the pit road, and that is going to be Matt Rodriguez, who is our actual in-race reporter for today's race. So we'll see if he's able to get back on course. But up front, it's Blake Reynolds and Hawkins still staying close to one another.
And as we're watching here, this battle inside of the top 5, we're focused on the 67 of Andrew Schwartz, one of the many Canadians that are in the field, along with Brandon Hawken up there in the second spot. Tonight's race is the Andrew Schwartz Fans Loud and Proud 150K, so we'll see if Schwartz can maybe win in front of his home crowd. He was actually up there laying down some good lap times in practice also.
Well, there's one thing about this course that's going to be very difficult. It's going to be the last couple of corners. The rumble strips are just so vicious on these machines. And also something to watch out for is all the rumble strips. They are so aggressive. And usually when we're watching IndyCar races, we say rumble strips are hard on the cars. But with how heavy that these machines are, it's just hard everywhere.
Almost 3 wide for the 6th position back here. That's 2-time winner Michael Cozy Jr. taking the spot. Your runner-up finisher from Spa, Brian Mercurio there, and he's going to get passed by Nate Stewart in the 13th, so moves Stewart up to 7th, Mercurio back to 8th. He falls now into the clutches of Sean Butler. The point standings coming into this race as things stand right now. You've got 12 drivers currently in playoff positions. Your top 11 in the points, of course, Reynolds and Justice with their 7 combined wins. Michael Cozy Jr. right now 19th in points would have the 12th and final playoff position, but you got a lot of drivers here tonight that could maybe point their way into the top 11, like Kyle Riley, Cosmonish No-Shoe, Kevin McAdams as well.
Just looking in the back, some cars that have been just trying to stay as simple and easy as they can. But a driver that looks like having some issues is the 77.
Is that Dylan Smith back there having some trouble? No, it wasn't him.
Was that Evan Rice?
Evan Rice. Yes, you're right. He was really loose off that corner. They took him 3 wide off that left-hander.
I mean, it's both Seth and I trying to watch all these drivers.
Whoa,
There's so much accident.
Kevin McAdams. Adams off the nose of, I think that was Dalen Barr. Everyone's going to get around him. That's one of the tough things here as well, is there's not a whole lot of maneuver space. So you get spun out, you got to lose about 10 positions before you can get the car refired.
Well, also, he's at one of the slowest parts of the track where all the machines have to pass him before he can get around. So he dropped all the way back to 32nd.
And we've had a lead change. Up front now, Brandon Hawken to the point, trying to go back-to-back wins in road course starts. He was a go-or-go-homer that took the win at Spa. He qualified into tonight's race, which holds a maximum of 62 drivers. Only 36 took the green. So Hawken trying to see if he can double down at the road courses. And of course, as mentioned, he's a Canadian driver, and he'd be in front of his home crowd tonight if he goes to victory lane.
I'm just looking at the intervals, and I don't know exactly what happened to Cosman Istanoshu, but he is having issues. Also, looking back at cars in the back, Tyler Claybaugh having issues, spun out, got into the wall. So a lot of machines in the back having issues, but everyone's kind of having issues at the moment.
Yeah, Justin Malello back in the pack as well, and we already mentioned about Kevin McAdams. We saw his issues. Ryan Naraki back there too. I mean, there's a lot of guys you're naming off right there that are either just inside the playoff grid or just outside looking in, as looks like a little bit of connection issues up front there for Brandon Hawken as he continues to show the way. One guy that I'm looking here that's running pretty well is David Shieldhouse in that 20 machine. He's in the 20th spot right now. He the 12th position right now, I should say, car number 20. He is currently 5th in the point stands, had that runner-up finish at Talladega, and a guy that just cracked the top 25, ensuring he was going to race here tonight just ahead of him, Adam Kodal. We've seen him be pretty competitive the last couple of weeks. He's good up here in the 11th spot.
Kodal's trying to have a good run, and he's just trying to stay more consistent. As at the beginning of the season, it was kind of difficult for that 33 trying to race his way in with the LCQ qualifying and able to get it done. More updates of cars having issues. Dalen Barr spun it out during the last lap and got it going again, but issues for the 000.
The good news with it being a road course is a lot of these drivers, with their spinouts, they're still able to continue on. Of course, when we reach lap 20, there will be an admin thrown competition caution for everyone to be able to bunch back up. We do have a couple of drivers that have lost a lap so far. Matthew Rodriguez is one, and you mentioned Cosman Istanoshu. Looks like he may have actually either disconnected or completely fallen out of the server, as he has dropped to dead last in the 36th position, and that's big because he was 13th in the points coming into this race, about 52 points out of the 11th spot in the standings. And we talked to Cosman actually after last week's race, about that he suddenly seemed to be getting the season turned around. This is not what he needed, a big momentum killer for the 84.
Yeah, it really wasn't what he needed. Some of the biggest movers so far, though, is going to be Michael Frisch, started 22nd up to 13th. And then also Arnold Columbia moved up from 29th to 15th. Those are some of your biggest movers. And a lot of the guys in the middle are starting to shift around just because some of these guys that were in the top 15 have spun out and moved back in the pack just because of that.
Michael Frisch coming into this race inside a playoff spot, 7th in the standings. Columbia, on the other hand, he's trying to get himself up into the top 25 in the standings. He's 26th in points coming into this one, only 5 points behind Adam Kodal, who right now is running a couple of positions ahead. Just took the 10th position, actually, away from Jake Poulin, 3rd in points.
Looking at some of the drivers up front, we still got Hawkins. Hawkins still up front leading the point, but Blake Reynolds not moving too far away, being a half second off of our leader, and then 2 seconds back from them is when we start to see Derek Justice in 3rd. And Justice at Spa, he was one of the cars that started in the back, got in the early cautions, had to basically survive most of Spa, but this time around here at Montreal, he is starting up in the top 3 and staying there for now.
Yeah, to your point, we never really got to see much of what Derek Justice can do at a road course with that early issue. He started that race from the 35th position, brought it home in 8th, however, and obviously with good starting track position here today, we're starting to actually see just how good of a road course racer Justice is. We know he can get it done on the speedways, but obviously shows he can be just as consistent here on the road courses. Another driver that is running well in the point standings, that is running pretty well on the track right now, is the 35 of Sean Butler. He's trying to reel in Nate Stewart for what would be the 7th position. Butler coming into this race 10th in the overall standings, and right now up inside of the top 10, as it looks like we've had another couple of drivers with some issues back there. The 086 of Rich Jameson is encountering some connection issues, and also Ryan Naraki, who came into this race 11th of the 12 championship drivers right now. He is also having some connection issues, it appears, falling back to the 33rd, now 34th position.
Yeah, some cars that are just having issues, just staying on course. It's going to be Gary Waterworth in 25th. The 12 machine has a lot of back-end damage, was ran into and forced off of the track. And also the 22 machine having some issues going off the track. So the couple of machines just struggling to stay on course, but are trying to continue with just trying to keep their car straight. I mean, this is still a long race. We're only 6 laps in, and they're trying to race to that competition caution, possibly to come in and get everything worked on their machines. But these cars are trying to work the best that they can.
We just saw right there the 77 of Noah Valerio, who got into the wall. He's got battle scars all over his number 77 Camaro. Was up front. The top 2 have checked out. Brandon Hawken and Blake Reynolds, nose to tail for the moment. They are over 3 seconds ahead of Derek Justice, who may momentarily be feeling a challenge from Andrew Schwartz and maybe even Dylan Alt for that 3rd position.
Yeah, Andrew Schwartz and Dylan Alt looked very quick during practice. Right now on track, Alt actually has the fastest lap on track with a 1:39.9. So Alt, someone to watch out for, but like we've been saying, he is far back from our leader, as he is almost 5 seconds back from the leader, but still right on the back bumper of 3rd and 2nd.
Yeah, Dylan Alt's a guy that you kind of have to keep an eye on. He didn't have the best of runs back at the Homestead Road Course, finished first car lap down in 18th, but the last time at a road course at Spa brought it home P3. So that's the one thing, is you go to these speedways and you're able to usually pick out 4 or 5 drivers to watch, but when we go to these road courses, that's when those specialists come to the top of the board, and you start to see them circling these races on their calendar as opportunities to win their way into a playoff position.
More issues for the 42 machine of Tyler Clava, and it seems like every single time I go back to check up on him, he has spun out somewhere.
Whoa!
Just having a lot of issues.
Yeah, no rear grip coming out of the corner for him.
Also, Dalen Barr had issues entering the pits, trying to get his car fixed up on, and possibly could be over, as he is just manually disconnected from the race after wrecking out.
Tyler Claybaugh up inside the top 25 in points, trying to make sure he is locked into future races. 23rd in points coming into this one, just a meager 17 points out of the cut line. Speaking of cut, Brandon Hawken cutting Blake Reynolds off a bit there. The two of them made some contact in a battle for the lead.
Battle for the lead, and they also got some lap traffic in front of them, so they got to be careful of this lap traffic to catch them in the right spot. But right now it is a dangerous position coming to the final couple of corners.
That is Andy Margot in the 48, who they are going to encounter. Wow, boy, that corner right there, that combination of right to left-hander. We've seen so many drivers, and even they're the race leaders. The right tires come off the ground, the left tires come off the ground. How difficult has it got to be for these guys to even drive the race car when 2 tires aren't even on the surface?
Yeah, you kind of just have to hit your mark and trust and cross your fingers that your car is going to stick once you hit the ground, and then you don't overshoot it at all. That's kind of one of those just hold on tight type of corners, and right now everyone up front doing a great job of just holding tight. But it's looking like Derek Justice might be getting a little bit fired.
Yikes, we were just on board with Blake Reynolds. That was Justin Malello in trouble, just in front of the 2 race leaders. Hawken made an evasive move left to avoid, but that could have been catastrophic.
Yeah, Malello still struggling on this course. He's been struggling a lot, but he's got so much traffic that he needs to be careful backing up and getting his car straight again, as he is finally able to get it straight. Margot able to get going, and now we got to put our focus back up front, where Derek Justice is really under fire now.
We alluded to it early on that no matter where these drivers are in the field, they are all having to really fight with this racetrack. And the moments that we had on board there with Blake Reynolds, you could see even he was almost having to kind of use the walls as a buffer to keep the car from spinning out on him. And these tracks here, these road courses, they don't have safer barriers. You're either going to make contact with a concrete wall or a steel guardrail, which is just going to rip apart your race car.
On the short, I mean, on the slow right hand, there was someone. Yeah, that's Tyler Clayball. That is completely off the course. Still having issues in that 42 machine.
He was just ahead of the race leaders moments ago. They were coming up to lap him. And so with Clayball lap down, 30 cars are still on the lead lap of the 36 that took the green to start this thing. Looks like Matthew Rodriguez, our in-race reporter, he is on pit road getting some damage repaired on his 57. We'll hopefully be able to get a word from him around the halfway caution period at lap 20, the competition yellow. And this battle for the lead will not go away. The problem is, Hawkins running the line he wants to run. Reynolds has to try and figure out somewhere different. And I'm not really sure there is any passing areas here at Montreal.
Yeah, we're hoping not to use their bumper. And this is kind of what we were seeing at the end of Spa with Hawkins and Reynolds. They were this close, and what hurt Reynolds was the fact that he used his bumper trying to move Hawkins, and it damaged his engine, and that's where he lost a lot of his time and finished in third at the end of that race.
When we showed you the point standings earlier on, there were a couple of names highlighted in purple. Kane Cook, our Daytona winner, and Graham Bolin, our winner from, I believe it was Richmond. Both of them are not in tonight's race. Neither one attempted to start, which really surprised me because Graham Bolin had a second place finish at the Homestead Miami road course race. But because neither one of them are here, they do not have a chance to race their way up in the top 25. A name that was not there was Brandon Hawken, who of course is a former winner at Spa. He's all the way down 48th in the standings. So if he picks up a second win here tonight, obviously this will have him move up in the standings. But from what I've understood, Hawken is not running the FTF Grand National Series full time.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. After he got his win, we thought maybe he would continue running and just due to the fact that he would feel more motivated and have a chance at the playoffs, but he didn't make the next couple of races, and it looks like he's just here to be a road course ringer and try to show these guys how to get it done, as he's been the biggest challenge for Blake Reynolds so far.
Well, right now, Hawkins trying to win his second road course race as a non-playoff driver, as a go-or-go-homer. Blake Reynolds trying to tie Derek Justice with 4 wins on the season, plus rack up more playoff points when we eventually get to that section of the season. And now moving into third is Andrew Schwartz, 6th in the point standings, eyeing his first win of the season.
Schwartz trying to set himself up after getting by Derek Justice, and the best chance he's going to have of this race, it seems like, with Schwartz. This is the fastest that we've seen him all season long.
It's interesting, too, as I look at the drivers that are currently in those 12 playoff positions. 3 drivers have not had a single playoff point to their credit when we eventually get to the chase for the championship. Jake Poulin, 3rd in points, is 1. Ryan Naraki, 11th in points, is another. 3rd one, the guy we're looking at, Andrew Schwartz, in that 67. So obviously, if he were to go to victory lane today, he would have some playoff points for the remainder of the regular season. As Derek Justice there, a battle continues between him and Dylan Alt, but I'll tell you what, this battle up front is just too good to go away from, because it's been no less than 3 car length separation between these two.
Yeah, you have those guys battling it out, and then you also got a battle for 10 with 3 cars right there on top of one another.
Adam Kodal, Michael Frisch, Jake Poulin right there. There you see the lap machine of Justin Malello back there. You've also got the kind of race within the race, if you will, here, because when we eventually get that competition caution in lap 20, a lot of these guys are going to be racing for Lucky Dog, and Jake Poulin's on pit road, I believe. He just ducked it onto the pit lane in the 0-0. This is interesting strategy.
It is. I mean, we were getting word that for pits, it was looking like fuel was going to be about 25 to 27 laps was the window that these drivers were looking at. So really, you just had to take the halfway, and then you would have been good. With Poulin coming into the pits, we're kind of interested to see what's going to happen with that machine and how long he's going to be in the pits, if there's damage involved or he has a different issue with his car at the moment.
I wonder if more drivers might think about doing that too, because with it being a road course, you've got a pretty good chance of coming to pit road, making your pit stop, staying on the lead lap. More than likely, everybody's going to come to pit lane when that competition comes out. If you stay out, you gain all of that track position. So that might be why the 0-0 is ducked onto pit lane as early as he has.
Yeah, you might be feeling like, hey, if at this competition caution, some of these drivers are going to have to pit even after we hit lap 20. So might as well come in, get that track position. I'm still going to have to pit one more time. Might as well be up front when I need to pit again.
The only thing is, though, with the competition caution coming out at lap 20, 25 to 27 laps, it's within the vicinity that drivers that come into pit at that competition caution could make it the rest of the way on fuel.
Looking at where some of these drivers are and where they possibly could be lapped, I think Jake Pullen should be all right just based off of lap times he's been running compared to our leaders. Could be all right. Fastest cars, though, that last lap, Andrew Schwartz looking like the fastest car on track up front in the top 3. Could be trying to make a charge up here for the top 2.
You can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not able to actually see. I think you've got the statistics there, but I think the biggest mover of this race might very well be that 28 of Ryan Williams. I think he qualified somewhere down around the 30th position, and he's worked his way up to 18th.
Yeah, I mean, he's moved up pretty well. Ryan Williams started 23rd, so he's moved up a couple of positions. Some of our biggest movers so far this race is going to be Dylan Smith, who started 32nd, and now is up to 14th. So Dylan Smith right now at the number 1 machine, our biggest mover so far. Other big movers going to be Michael Frisch, who started 22nd, up to 10th, so up 12 positions. And those are some of our biggest movers that are up here in the top 15.
I think that Frisch and Dylan Smith are actually a couple of teammates too, so both of them working their way up very nicely in those Toyota Supras. Frisch to 10th, Dylan Smith right now in the 14th position. Jake Poulin, we saw him come to pit road, make his pit stop and everything. Because of how much track position he had gained on other drivers that had struggled, he only came out in the 21st position. So, that was actually a really good call, because even if we end up having him not be able to make it on fuel, I mean, he's up there almost into the top 20. I think he's actually just now trying to make a pass for that 20th position on Matt Wishart.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Jake Poulin's fastest lap of the race compared to everyone else's, he would be slotted around the 12th position. So any type of track position that he can gain off of staying out here at the competition caution, it's going to help him. And maybe he felt like...
Just ahead of him there, Kyle Riley got out of shape trying to pass Justin Malone. Sorry to cut you off there. He keeps it going, though.
Yeah, I mean, coming in, giving him the track position, it's going to help him out. And honestly, even though we might have to see other people come in pits after our competition caution, Jake Poulin set himself up for the end of the race to maybe have a better finish than where he would have been if he stayed on sequence with everyone else.
You highlighted a moment ago the drivers moving through the field. One that is dropping is Derek Justice. He not only lost third to Andrew Schwartz, but Brian Mercurio got around him for fourth. Dylan Alt got around him for fifth. So Justice has dropped outside of the top 5 into that 6th position. The guy right now up there in the top 5 on the move, aside from Andrew Schwartz, is that 41 of Brian Mercurio, who finished runner-up to Brandon Hawken back at the Spa road course.
Yeah, Mercurio really has a nice... He's really good at these road courses and just finishing up front. So he's someone that we expect after this competition caution to probably stay in the top 10 and have a run here for a top 5 finish at the end of this thing.
Top 3, the Chevy of Reynolds, the Chevy of Hawken, the Ford of Schwartz. They're only separated by 2.9 seconds, which really is not a whole lot here at a road course, but Reynolds did get around Brandon Hawken for the race lead. Hawken's now starting to get reeled in by Schwartz, and to your point, Schwartz is the one driver up here still in the top 5 that is turning the fastest laps as Andy Margot spins in front of race leader Blake Reynolds.
Margot once again spinning in front of our leaders, showing this is something I talked about before the broadcast came up. The leaders aren't going to be safe. With the lap traffic having so much issues with this track, they could spin out, hit the wall, come back on the track, and you could be a victim of someone else's mistake. So you got to be careful running this course, especially with how narrow it is.
Blake Reynolds had cleared Cosmonition Oshie. You see there Hawken and Schwartz do the same. That actually allowed Schwartz to reel Hawken in even closer. And we're seeing this 89 sliding around. I almost wonder if he may have used up a lot of his rear tires trying to hold off Blake Reynolds on those first 10 laps or so.
Yeah, I mean, Hawken's lap times for that last time has dropped drastically, almost a half a second slower than what Blake Reynolds was running. So got to be careful of not overusing your stuff. But still, Hawkins, one of the faster cars out here. He's just got to be careful because Schwartz is the second fastest car out there.
Riding on board with Schwartz right now. We'll see how he sets up Brandon Hawken. Couple of Canadians going at it here at the Canadian Montreal Raceway. Kosminish and Oshu, we saw him get lapped. He's now fallen 3 laps down to race leader Blake Reynolds. Certainly not what he was looking for after a third place run last week at Irwindale Raceway. Currently 30 cars still on the lead lap. Ryan Naraki, the last of those. If the caution were to come out now, we've still got about 6 more laps before that happens. Justin Malello currently sits in that free pass position.
A couple of updates for cars all the way in the back. Cosmin Isinoshu able to get back and connected with the race, and he's moving up now up to 33rd. He is running laps, but he is 3 laps down. And next car in front of him is 2 laps down of Andrew Margot. So it's going to be a difficult road for this 84 machine, but at least he's back on track and connected with the server.
Jake Poulin continues to try and march his way through the field. The only driver that has come to pit road here during the course of these 20 laps. We're looking here at the 35 of Sean Butler. He's moved up to 6th, and the slide continues for Derek Justice. He's about to maybe fall outside of the top 10. He's dropped to the 10th position, and maybe about 3.5 seconds back to Adam Kodal. So he's kind of slotted himself right now into the top 10. Another driver that we haven't really talked about that's popping up there is Evan Brinker in the 21, right now in the 12th position, and David Shieldhouse in 13th behind him. He's found some problems here. I don't know if he ran into the back of somebody, if he nosed into the wall, but the whole front nose on that car, at least down around the grill area, it's gone.
Yeah, this is one thing with this road course and how narrow it is. If you run into someone, you could damage your bumper and lose your nose, and it looks like that is something that happened with Shieldhouse. And just, I was watching during practice. Some cars were actually practicing with that damaged nose, expecting to have damage during this race, and just seeing how fast they could run with it. So, a little bit of practice, as it looks like all the way down. There's another car in the pits. The 63 machine is in.
That's going to be Ryan Pandicio, and I believe this is a regularly scheduled stop for him. It is, as they're servicing that race car. He's been running around the top 25 most of this race so far, as Blake Reynolds continues to pick him up and put him down in terms of laps. The battle is continuing to brew for second place, but we are closing in on about 4 laps to go before we get that competition caution.
Another car that came in was going to be Ryan Naraki, who came in, but out of the cars that have already pitted, and the fastest car on track, that's going to be Jake Poulin, who came in, and after his pit stop was around 20th position. He's moved himself up to 16th. So Poulin, with that pit stop, is the fastest car on track by about a second on our leader.
I don't know about you, but my heart stops every time that those cars go flying off of those rumble strips. Poulin, those left sides completely off the ground. The one thing I would wonder about here for Jake Poulin, though, is he's going to be out there when we get the competition caution on about maybe 9 to 10 laps on these tires. Would he be wise to stay out there on those older tires when we get that competition caution, knowing that more than likely, unless the admin discretion kicks in and says, we need to throw a full course yellow, he's probably not going to get another caution for the remainder of this race?
I mean, with not having another caution, it's going to be difficult to say. I think he's trying to just gain as many positions as he can. As I remember, I think he came in the pits around 13th, 14th position, so he's almost back to where he was after pitting. So he's gaining time, but I would have to imagine he's going to come in, hit, and get some fresh rubber at that competition caution, because just looking at the lap times comparatively from how much our leaders have dropped off to where Poulin is now, those tires drop off very quickly. It's just due to the fact that our leaders are on so much older tires than Poulin, on why there's such a difference on time.
It sounds like a sentence that really doesn't make any sense, but race leader Blake Reynolds, he is struggling too. He has been into a couple of walls. He's been sliding it off the corners, almost missing the rumble strips. I mean, everybody, regardless of whether running at the front or at the back, they have been struggling here with this Montreal road course today.
Yeah, and I mean, these cars are so heavy that once your tire wear is gone, you don't have the grip. Your car is going to slide around, and there's nothing much that you can do about it except for just hope that your car will stick. And that's what a lot of these drivers have been doing whenever they hit the rumble strips. Of they know if they hit this rumble strip right, we'll send them to the next rumble strip, and then hopefully they'll be straight by the end. But you got to cross your fingers and hope for the best.
Battle just inside the top 10 right now for the 7th position. That's Michael Frisch trying to hold off a sliding Nate Stewart in that 13 machine. Not too far behind them, you've actually got two-time winner Michael Cozy Jr. just continuing to be consistent. Cozy Jr., of course, was a go-or-go-homer about 6 weeks ago after picking up a win at Phoenix.
It looks like Gary Watersworth got a little bit of that into an accident with, I think that's Justin Malello.
Yep.
Both of them had contact, and a lot of damage still on Malello. That's from earlier contact, but Waterworth having way more damage. I believe these guys are going to have to come into the pits.
And that was just somewhere up ahead of 4th and 5th place, Brian Mercurio and Dylan Alt. Malello, to your point, is on pit road now. Waterworth continuing on, but both of them have now been lapped. Malello now 2 laps down, Waterworth 1 lap down. Also a lap down is the 77 of Noah Valerio. So, now drivers like Ryan Araki and Warren Keith and Justin Malello, Pandicio, who we saw on pit road making a regularly scheduled stop, they may have to rely maybe on a wave around to get back on the lead lap. But again, I'm not sure you really want to put yourself at a deficit like that with the tire wear we've seen.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult with the deficit that there is going on. I'm watching the battle, though, for second. Looks like Andrew Schwartz has been able to catch up to Brandon Hawken, and they are now right on top of one another, and looks like Schwartz ready to make a move at any moment.
And we saw right there, Blake Reynolds may get reeled in here because he completely messed up a corner. Almost drove through the grass there trying to make a turn, and you can see the momentum he lost trying to get it back on track. That's brought Hawken about 3 car lengths behind him, and he's bringing Andrew Schwartz along with him.
So these guys, they have been trying so hard to stay straight, but I mean, we're racing to the competition caution on lap 20, but after the competition caution, they're going to have about 26, 27 laps to run, and so their tires are going to be way worn by the end of this thing as Schwartz takes it a little wide, and now he's going to lose a lot of time, and the caution is out.
Caution's out on lap 18. I don't know if this is the regularly scheduled caution or not, but before that caution came out, how about the strategy call for Brandon Hawken diving it onto pit road maybe about 2 seconds before the yellow was thrown? So he technically was coming down an open pit road. He's going to be able to get his service done. When everybody else comes to pit here under this competition yellow, he'll get to stay out and take the lead. So a heck of a strategy call there by the 89.
It was a brilliant strategy, but you got to think, with him coming down now, all the cars are going to be pitting later. They're going to have another lap of filling up their fuel tank all the way up, and who's really going to have the better strategy? I mean, these leaders, yes, they're coming in, and they're going to have to come in and get fresh rubber, but based off of trying to save fuel and save tires, will this be the better move?
Well, the driver that is looking up to the sky saying thank you very much caution is Rich Jameson in the 086. You saw him just moments ago driving away from the race leaders. He was maybe about a lap from going -1. And so he remains on the lead lap, and it looks like Noah Valerio in the 77 would end up being the recipient of the free pass here under this caution. We've got an opportunity here under pacing to be able to get a word with our in-race reporter, Matthew Rodriguez. And I know you've spent quite a bit of time there on pit road, Matt, but I mean, you got to go out there and do a couple of laps here. I mean, what is it exactly you drivers are dealing with the conditions of this track?
I mean, I'm not sure when they decided to replace our nice rubber tires with butter, but unfortunately, that's what it feels like. I mean, you go to the turns, and I mean, I've never felt that kind of lack of grip from these cars. It's kind of like you just throw it into the corner, and it's like, maybe it'll stick, maybe it won't. We'll find out. As I almost took out Derek Justice. I am so sorry.
Yeah, we were hoping that you don't try to take out any of these guys that are running out front. And it's been difficult for these drivers just overall, Matt, for anyone to find that grip. But while you were waiting for your pits to get done and repairs to be over with, were you able to watch any of these other drivers? And was there anything that was surprising you from it?
Living in constant fear. I mean, I know when I was pulling out, I ended up running into Justin Malello, and it looks like he was having the same problems that I was having, which is no grip, constant fear of just hitting something. So it was a bit interesting with that. It seems like everyone's having the same. Oh, I just passed someone under yellow. That's interesting. Okay. Um, but just living in constant fear of getting into a wreck. I know Justin, he spun around multiple times, and my apologies, I'm just rambling on here.
I mean, Matt, one thing that has been happening that I mentioned is when these cars take those rumble strips, either the left or the right side tires come completely off the ground, and it makes my heart stop. What's it like being in the cockpit having only 2 tires on the racing surface?
I will admit I've hit the rumble strips out of turn 3, and I mean, I swear you hit these rumble strips and it's a 50-50 shot, and whether it, it just lightly bumps the car up into the air and it feels really like kind of lightheaded, or you bump it and hey, next thing you know, you're into 13 walls. So it's a different feeling.
Well, Matt, we're gonna let you go here. I'm gonna crew chief you right now. I'm gonna tell you go out there and at least complete one more lap and pick up that 35th position because apparently the 000's out of the race. We don't have any race reporters that finish last.
Yeah, I mean, I told myself that it would be a smart move for me to run a road course race. So we'll figure out how smart of a move this is after I finish in next to last place.
That's Matthew Rodriguez, our in-race reporter, going to be going back to work here momentarily. And the strategy call did work, at least for the moment, for Brandon Hawken out in front. To the point that you made there, Sam, about him being 1 lap shorter on fuel than everybody else, though, I'm not really sure that's going to hinder them that much because the max number we heard was 27 laps. With him pitting at the completion of lap 19, I mean, that would put him right on the mark of being able to make it. And more than likely, with the way that drivers have to approach these corners so slowly, there could be some opportunities for him to save some fuel as well.
Yeah, there could be a chance of that. And, looking at some of the pit stops, Blake Reynolds losing a spot, going to be back in 3rd as he had one of the slower stops of all the competitors out here. Jake Poulin able to move up a position up to 11th. So him pitting in the middle of that stint wasn't the worst thing that could happen to him, as he's so close to the top 10.
You're just tuning in here tonight to this broadcast. You're watching the FTF Grand National Series presented by Splash and Go Graphics. We are currently working our first and only caution up to this point, a competition caution coming out at lap 19. Brandon Hawken, currently your leader here in the Andrew Schwartz Fans Loud and Proud 150K at Montreal. Right now, Hawken leads over Andrew Schwartz. Blake Reynolds back in 3rd. Dylan Alt completes the 4th position, with the top 5 being Brian Mercurio. Arnold Columbia is now up to 6th. Michael Cozy Jr. in 7th. Nate Stewart in 8th. 9th place will be Evan Brinker, and Dylan Smith completes the top 10. Jake Poulin did come to pit road when everybody else did after being a little bit off pit sequence on that last green flag run. He'll restart 11th. Michael Frisch in 12th. Evan Rice, Adam Kodal, and Ryan Williams the top 15. Top 20 will be Franklin Ash, Jack Painter, Sean Butler, Keith Sherman, and Rich Jameson. For the drivers that are still in the lead lap, 21st place Kevin McAdams, 22nd Ryan Naraki, Kyle Riley 23rd, 24th will be David Shieldhouse, 25th Matt Wishard, Noah Valerio currently in 26th, and Derek Justice, who looks like may have spent a little extra time getting some repairs done on pit road. He'll restart last car on the lead lap in 27th. The cars still running that are off the lead lap, 28th Ryan Pendisco, Warren Keith in 29th, 30th Gary Waterworth, 31st Andy Margot, 32nd Justin Malello, Cosmonition No Shoe in 33rd, 34th Tyler Claybaugh. Good for Matthew Rodriguez. He picked up the 35th spot. That's where he runs, and Dalen Barr right now is the only driver out of the race in the 36th position. Seth Cole alongside of Sam Dyer bringing the action here, and now the question is, Sam, will we end up having a wreck violent enough and congested enough here blocking up the track that we will see a full course yellow, or do you get the feeling, based off of really, admin decision with what we saw at Spa, that we are going to see these drivers go green all the way to the checkers now?
It kind of just matters on the drivers. It matters on how aggressive they're going to be racing here, as We possibly could see a full course caution here in the first couple of corners just because of how congested everyone's going to be. But it really matters on if there's a caution that makes it to where no one can make a move or pass. That's when the caution will be brought out. Otherwise, we're probably going to be staying green for the rest of this way.
Got a little bit of a shuffling going on up here, and I'm not really sure what is happening, as the 39 of Arnold Columbia is now up in the second position. I don't know if there was like some dispute of who won a battle off pit road between whom, but that now moves Schwartz back to third and Reynolds back to the fourth position. So Columbia right now would be scored on the outside of the front row with Hawken, which we should be getting the 1 to green signal this time.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird. I don't know how Columbia got up to second, because coming out of the pits, he was fifth. So a little bit of shuffling going on, trying to figure out what exactly happened. As I think you're confused, also I'm kind of confused, but at least like Columbia was the only one that really has made this big shuffle. Everyone else is kind of still where they are at.
We're not really sure what the circumstances were, but nonetheless, that's going to put Columbia in second for this restart, which is the highest he has run here today. You kind of get the feeling, though, that even though Hawken is going to be out there leading this race, he's got about 2-lap older tires underneath him, making that last-ditch effort dive onto pit road just before the competition caution came out. But he had Blake Reynolds pass him for the lead on that last green flag run, and he had Andrew Schwartz hounding him for second, so you kind of know we haven't heard the last of the 3 and the 67.
So, re-looking at it, Arnold Columbia, he pitted before the caution came out. That's why he was able to get there. Due to the fact that Hawkins came into the pits, came out before Columbia, and also where the caution came out, that is the reason why Hawkins is ahead of Columbia, and then everyone else behind came in the pits.
And that would make sense. All right, so Columbia, with not pitting under this competition, yellow would be up there with Hawken, who both pitted prior to the caution coming out. All right, so with that cleared up, makes a lot more sense why Columbia is up here on the front row. As things stand right now, looking in terms of drivers trying to battle their way into the playoffs, the two guys that still really are the ones that are not looking like they are going to have great points days here at Montreal. Cosmin Shinoshu is obviously one of them. He's back in the 33rd position. And then the other guy, we're going to have to see what happened, but he spent a long time on pit road, and that's Derek Justice, who is currently last car on the lead lap in 27th. I mean, he spent over 2.5 minutes on pit road, which I would have to assume would be repairing crash damage.
Yeah, the reason why we were seeing Derek Justice drop down so much was because I believe he rear-ended Austin Ishinoshu. So, I mean, not Ishinoshu, excuse me. He rear-ended Andrew Schwartz, and that's where the damage came from, and that's why I dropped back. Pace car is off, though, and we are about to go green.
Green flag is going to come out with a total of 24 laps to go as Hawken gets us back underway, and oh my goodness, look at them fan out 3 wide, almost 4 wide going into the right-hand turn 1.
And it looks like Columbia did not get the restart that he wanted up front, but it looks like Hawken able to get the restart he wanted, and now you're getting cars that are just going to be in front of Blake Reynolds, who now is only dropping to fifth.
This makes me nervous because they had a hard enough time just being by themselves out there on the track, and now they're double wide back here. Contact between Mercurio and Columbia for that 5th position. That stacks them all up behind with Michael Cozy Jr., Dylan Smith, Michael Frisch, and others.
Yeah, it looks like it's a 4-car push for the lead that have a little bit of a gap, but from 5th on back, it is all clustered up. And you got to be slightly nervous to be hoping that the car in front of you doesn't make an accident, because if one car makes a mistake, a lot of machines behind them are going to be having issues as well.
And you see here on these, if you can call them straightaways, they're the faster portions of this Montreal road course. You've got steel guardrail on the left, steel guardrail on the right. If a car shoots in front of you, there's not much place to maneuver to avoid them.
Well, one of the cars that had issues during that restart is going to be the 77 machine, who is smoking, and looks like it is engine damage for the 77.
Noah Valerio, who had managed to get the free pass under this caution, To your point, looks like his race may be over as up front, battle for the lead is gone. Battle for second, though, it is happening. As Andrew Schwartz had a little bit of an issue, moved out of the way of both Dylan Alt and Blake Reynolds to move Alt to second, Reynolds to third. This battle going on 1.2 seconds behind leader Brandon Hawken.
Brandon Hawken needs to pull away and make sure that he has at least a decent gap between himself and Blake Reynolds. Also, Alt, you gotta watch out. He is one of the fastest cars on track. So a lot of these machines, they're top 4 fastest cars on track, but Alt and Schwartz were kind of dueling back and forth on who was the fastest at a certain points. Blake Reynolds is the more consistent one, though. It seems on track.
Trying to look and see if there's any visible damage on that Mountain Dew Code Red number 67 of Andrew Schwartz, and I'm not seeing anything visible. I almost wonder if maybe he moved out of the way on purpose, saying, hey, you guys go use up your stuff. I'm going to try and save my tires here.
That or he overshot it. It's kind of hard to tell at the moment, but I mean, Andrew Schwartz back and forth and just waiting to see what happens in front of him.
Blake Reynolds just made the move around Dylan Alt, so move the Coca-Cola Camaro to second place as he'll set his sights once again on Brandon Hawken. Behind them, though, you've got a pretty good dogfight going on for 5th place. That's Michael Frisch side by side with 2-time winner Michael Cozy Jr.
They're trying to make as many passes as they can to get back up into the top 5. Michael Cozy Jr., who's been really having a solid second half of this so far season. First couple of races weren't that great for him until he finally got into the top 25, and it's been looking really good for this 99 machine.
And he will crack the top 5, getting by Michael Frisch, who looked like he locked up the brakes a little bit there into the entrance of that hairpin right-hander. Brian Mercurio right behind him in that 7th spot, and you know, we saw Brandon Hawken do some strategy. Holy cow, boy, 35 getting some air. Every time I'm amazed that they aren't flipping these cars upside down, but we saw Hawken do strategy to get the race lead. Jake Poulin did strategy. He's up in the 10th position. So, you know, you mentioned that before he made that pit stop, he was running back around the 13th position, net gain of 3 spots, and right now continue to be competitive. But I noticed right there, I mean, he locked up the front brakes. The tires just completely stopped, almost went reversed. These drivers having to use a lot of brake with the front. They're sliding with the rear as Kodal into the wall behind him.
Yeah, I mean, Poulin's been looking good. Based off the lap times on that last lap recorded, he would have been stacked up in the top 5, top 6 of the drivers that are up front just based off of lap time. But a car I'm watching that has faded back from starting in second, that is Arnold Falembia, who has dropped back now to 20th position. And honestly, it's not looking good for this 39 machine. He is just continuously losing positions and dropping back further and further.
Another driver that's falling back, we're just looking at it here, is Adam Kodal. He was up in 11th. He's back to 14th after hitting the wall there. 3 wide behind him. That's Kevin McAdams, Evan Rice, and Jack Painter. And how about McAdams? Because remember, we saw him spun around. I think it was in this very corner here, and he was drifted all the way back to around 29th. A great comeback for the 26th, now up in the 15th position.
Jones got speed. He just had one small mistake that really made him drop back. But McAdams now being able to get up to the 15th position. Also trying to look to see where Derek Justice is. Derek Justice is up to 24th after starting all the way in the back after some pit stalls. So there's that. Also, Noah Valerio has disconnected from the race. His race is done after blowing up his engine.
Justice is still on the lead lap, picked up 3 spots since we went back green, bypassing, you mentioned Valerio, as well as Kyle Riley and Ryan Naraki on the racetrack. As up at the front, though, again, the battle is on between Hawken and Blake Reynolds, the 2 drivers that have taken the 2 checkered flags so far in the 2 road course races of the season. Hawken at Spa, Reynolds at Homestead.
And Blake Reynolds just put down the fastest lap of the race with the 39.2. And Blake Reynolds, just the fastest car out there, running almost a second faster than Hawken that last lap. And that was after getting past the driver and just trying to catch up to the back bumper of this 89 machine. Blake Reynolds wanting redemption after losing at Spa.
So again, You know, the thing we got to wonder about, the number we were given, the furthest these drivers can stretch it, is 27 laps. When we went back green, it was 24 laps to go. So if that is on the money, these drivers basically have what they have, and they got to try and run it to the finish unless we get some kind of a random caution for a really big wreck. If it is indeed the 27 laps, if it's not, I mean, we could see these drivers have to duck on the pit road one more time.
Well, just for clarification, we're actually going to bring in our in-race reporter, Matthew Rodriguez, and ask, hey, we see you're in pit road. What's going on with your machine?
I mean, I got one too many heart attacks, and I decided it'd probably be best if I hang up for tonight and maybe focus on next week instead of accidentally taking out the leader and having to answer for that one. So just taking the sweet life and probably going to go to Steak and Shake and get another milkshake.
You were the guy that gave... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we both had the same question of what is the number for fuel really looking like for these drivers out here?
I would make up a guess number, but unfortunately I was too focused on not dying every lap, so I didn't get that far.
Well, I mean, I guess we're just going to stick with the guess that we had at the beginning of this thing. Maybe they can make it to the end, but it's looking like the way that these guys are driving, they're not trying to save. They're just trying to run as fast as they can.
Absolutely, as now you've got the top three all nose to tail, and Andrew Schwartz may make it a foursome here in just a moment. I don't know if it's a fact that Dylan Alt and Andrew Schwartz have gotten faster, or if Brandon Hawkins is kind of maybe holding up that three car just the least little bit, allowing the 40 and the 67 to close in. Last time by, Sam, Dylan Alt was the fastest car on the track, 0.2 faster than the other drivers here inside the top four.
Yeah, but all of our top four are running a 139 that last two laps ago now. This last lap, though, only driver that was hitting those 139s is going to be Dylan Alt.
Andy Margot gets out of the way. He's multiple laps down, so trying to not be a factor into what could be a brewing battle for this win. As right now, if you're Brandon Hawken, are you looking more in your rearview mirror than out the windshield, or are you trying to pretend that three car doesn't exist?
I think right now you're more so thinking of, okay, well, I know I need to block the inside just in case he comes. So you look in the mirror every once in a while, but you're more so focused on making sure that you have grip under your tires, because these cars have been just slipping and sliding everywhere, and it looks like it's more of a handful to keep it under yourself than it is really worrying about cars around you.
Dylan Alt continues to reel in these top two. Andrew Schwartz has kind of fallen off a little bit. He was starting to close in. I don't know if he had a little bit of trouble maybe getting around that slower machine of Andy Margot, or if he's gone back to maybe trying to save his tires a little bit here. But he has fallen off about 2.5 seconds off of Dylan Alt in that third position. So now it's really just a three-car fight at the front of the field at the moment.
Yeah, it looks like Alt's just pulling away, and Schwartz not running. I mean, he was running just as fast as Blake Reynolds, but not fast enough to stick with the rest of our leaders.
Talk about Brandon Hawken, a go-or-go-home driver, trying to pick up his second win of the season. How about another go-or-go-home driver up here in that 8th position? Solid outing for that number 21 Hellman's Camaro of Evan Brinker. He was up in the top 15 before that competition caution, now solidifies himself in the 8th position. So a lot of times, you know, like you said, we've got those road course ringers that show up just for these type of racetracks, and we get to really see what they're able to do.
Well, we're starting to see pits, or I don't know if something went wrong for the 99 machine, but Michael Cozy Jr. bringing his car into the pits.
And Michael Cozy Jr. is a two-time winner. He's already up in the top 25 in points. He's got those 2 victories, so he knows he's locked into the playoffs. So he's maybe one of those guys trying something a little bit different here. If indeed they are going to be short on fuel, he's the one throwing down the gauntlet, getting the fresh tires and saying, hey, you know what? I've played my hand. Now it's your guys' turn.
Well, just the fact that he's been in pits for as long as he has, it looks like it's more so of a damage issue on why the 99 machine came into the pits. Because if it was just for fuel, he probably would have just done a splash and go, but he has been in the pits for over 30 seconds. And usually if you're in there longer than 15 seconds, it's because of damage.
Well, this battle at the front is fun to watch. As Blake Reynolds took the lead away from Brandon Hawken, you had Dylan Alt trying to swing around the outside to take second place, couldn't quite do it. So as Reynolds finally gets the race lead back, he'll try and set the pace and gap himself back to that 89. Brandon Hawken may not be done yet though, as he tries to close up the gap yet again going into that left right-hander.
But it's looking like
Dylan Alt into the wall.
Well, before that, he was looking like he was the fastest car out there. So, you got to check and see how much damage he really took after hitting the wall. As it dropped him by about a second compared to everyone else just by hitting the wall there.
Hard to really see it, but I know that it was definitely around the right front. I don't know if it was necessarily to the nose or just behind the right front tire on the side of the door. We'll see how that affects him as Andrew Schwartz trying to close in there for that third position now. Still up front though, about maybe 3 car lengths between Blake Reynolds and Brandon Hawken. And you know, to your point with Michael Cozy Jr., he is, I believe, now back out onto the racetrack, but he has dropped the last car on the lead lap in the 26th position.
Battle I'm watching in the middle of the pack, as our leaders are still so close to one another. This battle for 13th that's going on against Evan Rice and Adam Coolin. I mean, these guys have just been passing back and forth, and Kevin McAdams kind of just waiting for them to figure out who's going to have what position.
Like Rice will take the spot as Kodal fishtailed it out of one of those turns, and McAdams closes in on both of them. Your point, 13th, 14th, 15th is what we are looking at right now. We've also got another battle not too far behind them. Derek Justice trying to fight his way up to the front as Keith Sherman's in the grass there in the 15 car, and so Columbia and Justice move up to 18th and 19th now. That's what this battle is. Justice has slowly been chipping his way up through the field, not setting a blistering pace, but obviously, you know, every position is a point, and so he's trying to be very methodical in how he works his way back up.
Yeah, the pace that Justice is running would put him around 11th, 12th position, so he's slowly gaining on everyone else, and we'll see him slowly make his way up to the car in front of him that's about 5 seconds in front, but finally getting past Columbia and off to his next victim.
Nate Stewart's going to get around Columbia as well, who's really struggling in that Air Canada Chevrolet, I believe it is, and he has dropped back now to the 20th position. As we move back up closer to the front, another good battle that is starting to heat up is for that 14th position. Kodal now slipping back to Kevin McAdams. McAdams trying to continue to fight his way up into the top 10 after he was one of the first drivers to encounter some issues in the first half of this race. Kept himself on the lead lap, got that competition caution, and has made something really good out of what could have been a very horrible situation. And that's sometimes, you know, the beauty of a road course is the fact that since it's so long, you don't really run that much of a risk of falling off the lead lap. And of course, with knowing that competition caution is waiting in the wings, then you're able to roll the dice, get some strategy, or at least be bunched back up and then pick your way through the field again.
Yeah, I mean, it's mainly getting bunched back up is the main thing. Those first couple of laps after a restart really are the best chances to make passes, unless you've dropped a ton of positions because of pitting and all that, like we saw with Derek Justice. Where Justice now, with him having all of this time, he's now slowly gaining up on everyone ahead of him, but Justice still has quite a distance to gain on the driver in front of him, but I think he's got about, initially when he passed Columbia, it was about 5 seconds difference. Now it is less than 4 seconds on the car in front of him.
And the battle for the lead is back on. Brandon Hawken has not let Blake Reynolds get away, and they are starting to catch up to traffic yet again. I think that might be Cosmin Ishinoshu in the 84 once more that they will catch. Cosmin is currently still running on track 2 laps down. He's up to the 29th position. He's been able to pass a couple of drivers that have run into some issues here. There's Justin Malello in the 53 as well, moving out of the way of the leaders. Malello currently in the 30th position, 3 laps down. I want to just quickly bring in our in-race reporter one more time here, Matthew Rodriguez, and ask him as far as, you know, being able to split what you're looking at. You have to obviously keep an eye on the traffic around you. At the same time, you have to keep an eye on the line you're taking into the corners. I mean, how difficult is it to kind of be looking in 3 different places at the same time with your car trying to slide out from underneath you?
I mean, I think that's what everyone kind of takes for granted. I mean, like the guys like Blake Reynolds and Brandon Hawken and Dylan All. I mean, those guys are just on a completely different level and are able to do all of this. When you see us in the back, we're struggling just trying to get our lines down and making sure that we don't hit each other. So, uh, I don't really know if there's an easy way to say how difficult it is, because you just have to experience it and realize you're overwhelmed, or you can actually say, hey, they're just something else.
Yeah, that's just a difference in talent. I think that's where we start to see that. I was on board with Derek Justice, and he went a little bit off track, which gives now his position of 17th to Nate Stewart. And Nate Stewart slowly making his way forward, and he's one of those cars that has the same speed as Derek Justice, but it looks like he's just being a little bit more consistent than that 31.
Yeah, we saw Nate up inside of the top 10 early on in this race. Another driver that is cutting his way up through the field is the 28 of Ryan Williams. He is now up into the 9th position. So that Flying J American Heart Association Camaro is looking very racy as he's trying to reel in Jake Poulin for what would be 8th, and just up ahead of him is Sean Butler as well in 7th.
Also, Evan Rice making the pass on David Shieldhouse a couple laps ago, now pulling away and trying to gain up on Dylan Smith in front of him.
You know, it's really interesting too. You know, Shieldhouse, we documented earlier about how the whole nose is gone on that car down around the grill area. And yet I'm looking and he's running lap times similar to some guys that are running up in 8th and 9th place. So it kind of looks like that front end damage doesn't really affect you that much.
Yeah, I mean, the only place it's really going to be affecting you is the aero part on some of these straightaways, but the turns, it's more so of how much braking are you putting in and how fast are we pushing your car in. As Michael Frisch, who has actually pitted that last lap, now making up a position, trying to gain time, as he is now the fastest car on track.
We mentioned Frisch making a pit stop, and also on pit road is the 32 of Matt Wishart, who I think may be getting a little bit more than a pit stop. He might be getting some damage repaired. Interesting that we had Michael Frisch on the pit lane there. I mean, this says to me maybe they can't make it on fuel, so the window is open now for drivers to be able to make it.
I mean, Jake Poulin also is coming into the pits, so with a couple of these guys that have been running up in the top 15 coming into the pits, got to make you think that maybe they feel like they're not going to be able to make it.
Here you can see the difference between the fresh tires of Michael Frisch and the old tires, the slipping and sliding of Adam Kodal, as Frisch has now moved up into 11th.
Just came in. Yeah, I think we're starting to see a lot of drivers going to start to come in now, with Dylan Smith now in and a couple others.
I believe that a lot of these guys are teammates or have some alliances with Wishart, Frisch, Smith, and Poulin. So interesting that they're all coming to pit road together. I mean, Frisch has been able to fight his way back up to the 11th position, so there may be something in it with those fresh tires. He's now about to crack the top 10 here and bypass David Shieldhouse. So Reynolds, Hawken, all take notice, because maybe one of these 3 guys, or even Andrew Schwartz back there, who are all still within about a second and a half of each other, you know, one of them might be able to kind of jump the gun, come down pit road early, get those fresh tires, and make up a lot of ground like we've seen Frisch be able to do.
Yeah, I mean, with how long that you're going to be in pits, just in the lane itself, you're better off just getting tires and trying to get as much speed as you can. Because I don't think these guys can come in, just do a splash of fuel, and be in front of Michael Frisch at this point. So it's going to be interesting.
Right now, Frisch would be 37 seconds behind race leader Blake Reynolds. And overall, it looks like to make a pit stop here, you know, if you hit everything just right, you're going to be on pit road for about 45 seconds to maybe a full minute with being on pit lane and being in your pit stall.
Now, one of the drivers starting to hear a lot of issues out there. We even heard our race reporter of Matt Rodriguez talk about it. Justin Malello, sounds like he's been having a lot of issues out there and continuing to have issues.
Malello still in that 30th position though, and Michael Frisch. Those fresh tires continue to march to the front as he just got around Evan Rice and moved him up to 8th. The gap now between himself and Blake Reynolds is down to 36.5 seconds, so there's 12 laps to go. There's no way he can close up 36 seconds in those 12 laps, I don't think. If Reynolds and these guys can make it on fuel, which with all these guys pitting, something says to me, no, they can't, but...
Fieldhouse just came in, Warren Keith just came in, and a couple of others. So a lot of the guys from about the middle on back have come into the pits.
Here comes Dylan Alt.
Dylan Alt now in, so this is showing signs. They cannot make it to the end here. This is something I was talking about. Even staying out, maybe pitting that last lap, maybe could have made it to the end, but what these guys are showing is that they're not going to make it. Might as well come in early, short pit, get the tires and fuel, and maybe you'll gain time on the cars in front of you that pit later on.
Dylan Alt was running 3rd of that 3-car train up here at the front. You gotta wonder if that early call to pit road could be the race-winning move for the driver of the 40. Finished 3rd at the last road course race at Spa, so we know he's got the speed at the road courses. And good grief, Brandon Hawken literally sliding through that left-hander.
Yeah, it was looking like if the leader stayed out for another couple of laps, and Michael Frisch could have caught up and made up all that time, as he will now be 9 seconds away from Olt. This is looking like it's in Olt's hands if our leaders don't come into the pits in the next, I would say, two laps to 3 laps. If they don't come in those times, Olt could pass them up just because of short pitting.
A little smoke there through that right-hander. And yeah, to your point, did Dylan Alt force the hand of these guys to have to come to pit road now? Because I almost think that they've been losing time every lap that they stay out.
Yeah, no, they would be losing time. Right now, Michael Frisch, who's on 4-lap old tires, is running about 2 seconds faster than our leaders, and he's not even one of the fastest guys out here. So that's just showing you there is a huge difference, as Frisch just put down his fastest lap, a 140.0.
Now, Michael Frisch, we know, did take tires. His pit stop was 14.4 seconds. Dylan Alt's, on the other hand, was only 6.2. Can you change just 2 tires on that short of a pit stop, or would that have been a fuel only?
That is a fuel only pit stop, and I'm looking at the intervals. That time by Frisch getting 2 seconds on Alt, who Alt is still gaining. It looks he's gaining time on the drivers in front of him, but that's just because the pace that Alt has to everyone else. But I think Frisch, just because how much time is left in this race, he could catch up to Olt and possibly make a move here.
Boy, I'm really actually surprised that Dylan Alt didn't take tires there. We don't really know what the interval would have been between himself and Michael Frisch had he taken tires, but you know, if Hawken and Reynolds take tires, that's going to put the 40 at a huge deficit, not only to them, but as you mentioned, Michael Frisch, who is continuing to close up the gap. We got a car that's facing the wrong way there out of that hairpin right-hander. I think that was the 086 of Rich Jameson. We'll see if he can get that car turned back around. He does, without involving anybody else. Unfortunately, that was off the racing surface.
Off the racing surface, and now is the first car 1 lap down. It's the 47 spins around in front of the leaders.
That's Warren Keith. And he's going to have to get that car fired up and facing the correct way. I think he's got a little bit of an access road here. Yeah, a little bit of an access area between the final few corners in pit road that he can turn the car around. Warren currently 2 laps down in the 27th position.
Still looking at the intervals between Frisch and Olt, and it is down another 2 seconds. Every lap is going down 2 seconds. It was originally at 9 seconds when Olt got out of his pits. It is now down to 5.5 seconds. So Frisch really putting down some quick times, trying to catch up to Olt, who Olt, we thought if he had fresher tires, would have been making up time on the cars in front of him. But right now, it's not looking good for this 40 machine.
And just as important, him closing in the interval between himself and Dylan Alt. The interval between himself and race leader Blake Reynolds has been cut down to almost 30 seconds, which means that, whatever amount of time Blake Reynolds loses on pit road, that's going to bring Michael Frisch possibly passing both the 3 and the 89 by time they complete their pit stop, depending on if they take tires or if they maybe go with a gas and go pit stop here. The question is, when do they come to pit road, though? Because I would assume if Dylan Alt was on pit road from the 3rd position, everybody's going to have to be on pit road here in these final 9 laps.
Well, we got to also take a look at where Olta is on track, and if any other drivers come into the pits, I mean, we might see our leaders try to stretch it out, possibly. I mean, Blake Reynolds, yes, he is in the lead of points, but you never know. He might try something and try to stay out there longer than everyone else. Hawken, like I stated when he came into the pits, he came in a lap earlier than everyone else. So he cannot reach. I do not believe that 89 machine can reach it to the end, but still a second within Blake Reynolds, so still staying close. I don't know if he has the fuel to make it as far as that 3 machine.
Great point, and also if you think about the two of them too, maybe trying to stretch it. I mean, for both of them, what do they really have to lose? Blake Reynolds already has 3 wins. He's leading the points. He's already locked into the playoffs. He's just out there trying to rack up more wins and more playoff points by the time we get to the end of the regular season. And Brandon Hawken, this is only his 2nd start of the season. He's a go-or-go-home driver, not running full-time. He's just out here to get the W.
Yeah, he's just out here trying to do something different. It's really Andrew Schwartz that we have to worry about. What type of strategy is that car going to do? Is he going to come in the pits, get some tires? I think pitting now, getting fresher tires is the move to make, as he's still, the longer these guys stay out, the less of a gap they're going to have on Frisch, who Frisch is now less than 2.5 seconds away from Alt and is now trying to get by the O2, and he sees Alt right in front of him.
He's on the same straightaway as Dylan Alt, and going back to your point about Andrew Schwartz, back on that first green flag run that we had before the competition caution, Andrew Schwartz was actually one of the faster cars out there on the long run. So if he comes to pit road, gets those fresh tires ahead of Reynolds and Hawken, there's no doubt in my mind he can make up a lot of time on those top 2.
Just looking at the best lap times that these drivers have put all race long, Blake Reynolds has about a half a second faster than Hawken. Hawken is the 2nd fastest car with the best lap times. But on track right now, with our leaders, Blake Reynolds was faster, but Schwartz very close in 3rd, and Hawkins losing time to our leader.
And as we continue on this run, the leader's starting to encounter some more traffic. That's the 12 of Gary Waterworth, who's actually going to go through the grass off course to get out of the way of these race leaders. Looks like some pretty clean racetrack here now for Reynolds before he would encounter another machine. And to your point, yeah, Hawkins' car just does not look like it's quite got the same get up and go it did earlier on in this run. But at the same time, Reynolds continues to slide through these corners too.
Alt has moved out of the way to let Frisch by. Alt does have some front end damage, it looks like. Might have hit the wall or hit another car. Alt does have some damage on that front end again, but Frisch now gone and really trying to find as much fresh air on that machine and just to keep on gaining on the cars in front of him, as he is now less than 30-second gap between him and the leader. So if the leader's coming to the pits, they're going to lose that spot, and this is Frisch's race to lose at that point.
Another driver that we didn't document that came to pit road the same lap as Dylan Alt was the 35 of Sean Butler. And right now, both he and Michael Frisch are out there running 1 minute 40-second lap times. Your race leaders are running anywhere in the mid to high 142s. So they are gaining about 2 seconds a lap on the remainder of the top 5.
Yeah, and also looks like Butler came in and did take tires on that pit stop. So he's gaining time on all the cars in front of him. Now, I don't know if there's enough time for him to gain up on Evan Rice and Alt, but I'll have to wait and see, as these drivers are they're running out of time, and we got to keep questioning, are the leaders going to come in or are they going to run out of gas?
We saw Poulin come to pit road. You mentioned Dylan Smith and David Shieldhouse. Also, Ryan Williams was on pit road during this green flag run. So the question is about these guys up here: Reynolds, Hawken, Schwartz, Mercurio, and Brinker. That's your top 5, and they've been out there now for 21 to 22 laps on these tires.
Been out there for a while, and I gotta say, I'm very impressed that Blake Reynolds is still running a 141.9 that last lap. But just compared to his fastest lap out there, he's running about 3 seconds slower.
That's the first time in maybe the last 10 laps, though, that he's run a lap time in the 141s. He's been down there around maybe the 142.2s, 142.3s. But apparently now with Hawken nearly 2.5 seconds behind him, he's being able to maybe back up his corners a little bit more, hit his marks a little bit better, just focus out the windshield rather than in the rearview mirror.
Frisch is now about 2 seconds away from Evan Brinker in 5th place. So if those drivers come into the pits, I mean, that's another couple of positions that are just easy pickings for this 58 machine. And Frisch might have had the best game plan out of everyone else, coming in early on this green flag run, getting the 4 tires while everyone else's tires were worn down, and now making the move up to 6th, and potentially, if our leaders have the pit, have the race win.
I'm going to make a little bit of a possibility of a theory here. You know, I thought that competition caution came out a little bit earlier than we were expecting. I was expecting it on lap 20. It came out at the completion of lap 18. My thought process is more than likely what the admins decided to do is make sure they threw the caution, but they threw it early enough so that way it would not be that competition caution was the only pit stop these drivers would have to make in the second half of the race. They wanted to make sure there was going to be enough laps here after the competition caution that these drivers were going to have to think about pit strategy.
Yeah, I mean, it was talked about possibly even drivers meeting. They stated, hey, we might change the competition caution. We are initially saying it's going to be on lap 20, but if during the race we feel like we need to throw it earlier, we will throw it earlier. And, you know, around lap 16, we were starting to see a lot of cars slipping and sliding with the older tires, and the admins made the move. Hey, we're going to actually not do lap 20, we're going to do lap 18. And like you stated, it could have been due to the fact that they felt like they needed to make that move, so they had to pit one more time. And I feel like with drivers pitting, it's really given the opportunity for some drivers that are not up front to have a chance to win this thing. And it came down to a strategy as Frisch right on the back bumper of the 21 machine and now making the pass.
Top 3 continue to stay out, though, as Frisch cracks the top 5. He's 25 seconds back behind race leader Blake Reynolds. Next car that he's going to be looking to focus on is Brian Mercurio, who's about 8 seconds ahead of him. Frisch right now is the one that we know at the front can make it on fuel. He's got the tires under him. He's still out there running 141 second lap times. Everybody ahead of him ran 142s to 143s, including race leader Blake Reynolds. So obviously he doesn't have enough time laps-wise to be able to catch up there to the race lead. But again, the thing that we're thinking is these top 4 are still at some point going to have to come to pit road. So if you're Blake Reynolds and you know Michael Frisch is back there, do you basically have to go with a fuel strategy stop, just a quick stop and go and get out there to make sure that you don't lose time taking tires?
I mean, yeah, that is the strategy you're going to throw out for, but with how much time that Frisch has gained, I think just by coming down the pits and running all the way through and not even stopping for fuel, you're going to lose first. You have to take tires, and hopefully you'll have enough time to gain up on the drive on Frisch, but with how long they've been waiting to come into the pits, it's really thrown a wrench in them possibly having a chance to make a move or even challenge Frisch at this point. As I'm going to do a quick update for Derek Justice, who started all the way in the back on that competition caution. He's now moved himself up to 13th, and has Kevin McAdams right in front of him for 12th.
A great comeback for both of these drivers. McAdams, an early spin up in the 12th spot. Derek Justice spent a long time on pit road during the competition caution. Restarted back in 27th and now up in the 13th position. So great job by both of these guys to really make a good situation out of what could have been horrible points days for them both. Another driver that we saw on pit road for what we thought was an unscheduled pit stop, Michael Cozy Jr., the 2-time winner. He's actually up here now in the 18th position. He's still on the lead lap as well. So a guy that was back around 25th, 26th about 20 laps ago, is now up inside of the top 20. Now just actually made a move around. I think that was Arnold Columbia. Actually, nope, it was Franklin Ash that he passed and moved the 99 up to 17th place. Going back to the Michael Frisch situation too, the storylines for a lot of our broadcasts has been the big three. Blake Reynolds, 3-time winner. Derek Justice, 4-time winner. Michael Cozy Jr., 2-time winner. All the other race winners this season have been drivers that are go or go home drivers outside the top 25 in points. Michael Frisch could be the guy that could be that fourth driver we'll look at that's been able to topple the big three on fuel strategy and on pit strategy here today at Montreal.
Time will tell if the 58 machine will be able to do that, as looking at the times, not really gaining as fast as he once was. It looks like the tires are starting to equal out. All that advantage is kind of starting to fade away. Still a second faster than Mercurio, that is in fourth, but it's not looking like he's gaining as much as he once was. Michael Frisch, that is. I want to give a brief update of cars that are all the way in the back and are not going to be finishing out this race. Matt Wishart will not be finishing it. He just disconnected, finishing 31st. Also, Kevin Warren, after the spin out that he had, he came in and is still being repaired on his car. Basically 30th on back, will not be finishing this race. Everyone else still on track, still trying to finish out this race, even with a ton of damage, for about 20th on back.
Yeah, we saw multiple laps down. Cosmonish Oshu has also gone to the garage area. A driver that came into this race 13th in the points, was trying to point his way into the playoff grid here today, as this is a great 3-car battle that's going on here with 2 laps to go. Back around the 12th position, McAdams and Justice still going at it, but they've also added Dylan Smith into this battle in 14th place.
Dylan Smith is running on 11 lap old tires, so he's running way faster than these guys, about 2 seconds faster on pace. So Dylan Smith going to try to make a pass on both Derek Justice and McAdams, as there's a lap machine right there. Woo! That was scary for the 3 of those machines, able to get that lap machine out of the way. I believe that was Margot that was running. Just waiting to see, as they're both side by side in this battle, but cars up front that are possibly going to have a challenge. It looks like Hawken lost touch to Reynolds, but is starting to be challenged by Schwartz. So Schwartz still right there, trying to move up at least a second. As it looks like Frisch, update for him, he is 6 seconds away from Mercurio as the laps are ticking away.
Yeah, it's going to be the white flag this time by for Blake Reynolds, who looks like he is going to make it on fuel. I'm shocked that these guys were able to make it on what they had after that competition caution back around lap 18. But Reynolds looks like he is en route to his 4th win of the season. And this is an important pass for Andrew Schwartz to make as well, because Hawkins is not running full time. Schwartz, however, is. Almost looks like maybe here Hawkins may be realizing that, Schwartz is battling for points. He's going to not battle him, give him the spot. And that is a couple of Canadians right there helping each other out.
Well, also Hawkins needs to think about fuel-wise. He's right on the edge of making it to the end. He's on lap 27 right now of the fuel run, and like we were talking about earlier, our guess for fuel was looking like 27 was the max you could do. And yes, he had a couple of laps, caution laps to work with, but he's been running extremely hard, and fuel drains away with how hard you're running. But up front, Blake Reynolds, he's on lap 26, about to hit 27. He should be good to the end. And you got to think, could Dylan Olt have made it to the end if he did not pit?
Going to be actually fun to ask Blake Reynolds, Andrew Schwartz, Brandon Hawken, if they do finish 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, what their gauges said. How close were they to running out if indeed they do make it? Whoa! Right, Blake Reynolds slides it there a little bit with the rear end of the car, going out through that little kink of a right-hander. And it looks like he's shaking the car a little bit here. Is he out of fuel?
Shaking it, or he could just be doing, Blake Reynolds at these road courses likes to show off a bit on his skill as he drifts it around the last corner and down the straightaway. Blake Reynolds gets the win here at Montreal.
Andrew Schwartz is going to make it in 2nd, and Brandon Hawken is out of fuel. Coming into the final few corners, Mercurio's going to pass him for 4th. Is Michael Frisch
is going to get it fast as well?
Yes, he is. He's going to get fourth as someone's trying to help push Hawken across the line. That's Pendicio, who actually pushes Hawken across the line in the 5th position.
Gotta wonder if his ult is not going to get there in time with the help from the 63 machine with Hawkins. So Alt's going to finish 6th. Hawkins is going to get a top 5 finish. So I think that kind of answers our question. 27 laps coming to 28. You ran out right before you got there on 28.
Absolutely, and you brought up the great point there. I thought it was just a fact of Hawken letting Schwartz by, but with how close he was on fuel, you were absolutely right. He couldn't put up a fight because he was more worried about getting to the start finish line. So Mercurio is going to get his second straight top 3 finish at a road course as he was runner up back at Spa. And Michael Frisch, that strategy, if these guys had run out of fuel, probably would have worked to a T, but still a great points day for him. Working that strategy, getting those fresh tires, worked his way from about the, what was it, 14th, 15th position up to finish officially in 4th place.
Yeah, I mean, Frisch would have finished out, I think, probably around 7th or 6th if he didn't make this move. So it was a really fantastic move on his part to come in about 15 laps before the end of this thing, get new tires, get packed with fuel, and run it to the end. And it was a great run on Frisch's part. I think he was just banking on everyone else maybe being a lap short, and they were a lap to the go, except for Hawken, who kind of tried to make a bold move, come in a lap earlier than the competition caution, and it just didn't work out for him.
And this season has been a clear storyline of anything you can do, I can do better. Brandon Hawken wins a race. Blake Reynolds wins a race. Then, or I'm sorry, I make that Derek Justice rather wins a race, and then Reynolds wins a race, and then Justice wins a race. Then Michael Cozy Jr. says, "Hey, I'll come in and win a race." I mean, these three have been back and forth, winning just about every other week. And this is an interesting train. Is Reynolds out of fuel and maybe getting a little bit of help to victory lane? Looks like maybe he is. Brian Mercurio going to help push him there.
Yeah, I wonder, Mercurio, when is he going to run out of fuel? As both these machines pit at the same time, and both going to be drifting on in.
And I don't think Mercurio's, or not Mercurio, Reynolds. No, he does. I was going to say, does he have enough fuel to be able to do a burnout? Apparently, Mercurio pushing him, he was able to save enough to be able to do this burnout here on the front straightaway. And you can see he's up there towards where the pole sitter would have started this race from the standing start, and that's where Reynolds starts. He goes coast to coast, pole to win here today at the Montreal road course. He's now 2 for 3 in road course starts here in the FTF Grand National Series. Let's look at the finishing results from today's race. We gave you your top 5. Dylan Alt there will finish in 6th. How about another goer go homer there, and Evan Brinker finishing 7th. 8th for Sean Butler. Jake Poulin brings it home in 9th, and another goer go homer in Evan Rice, bringing it home solidly inside of the top 10. Ryan Williams will finish 11th. Derek Justice and Kevin McAdams, we documented their march through the field, 12th and 13th for them. Dylan Smith in 14th, 15th for Nate Stewart. No nose, but David Shieldhouse brings it home 16th. Michael Cozy Jr. in 17th. Adam Kodal 18th. Arnold Columbia in 19th. And Franklin Ash was the first car to finish a lap down. He got lapped just in the closing stages of that final lap. He'll finish in 20th as we look down through the rest of the finishing results from this one, and a couple of names that really jump out at me. Kyle Riley finishes in 25th, and Cosmonish Shinoshu finishes back in the 32nd position. These are two drivers that came into this race 12th and 13th in points, had a chance today with a good run to point their way into a playoff position heading into next week.
Yeah, I mean, you got to hope that, the next couple of weeks, these drivers can bounce back. But yeah, I mean, this is such a different road course than any of the other road courses that you're going to see these drivers be on. And you saw how difficult it was. Ishinoshu, though, had some connection issues at the start of the race, and then finally got back in here and was able to finish and not finish last, but got a couple of positions, but still not the finish he wanted. Kyle Riley having issues as well. Just overall, not the days that a lot of these drivers wanted to have, but a very difficult racetrack.
And we have our race winner, Blake Reynolds, on standby down in victory lane. And Blake, I think the first question that we got to ask is we saw a lot of drivers looking like they were going to be close on fuel. We saw the 89 drop down there with no fuel in the last couple of corners, and he was about one lap shorter than you were. How concerned were you that you were going to be able to make it to the checkered flag with what you had in the tank?
Well, at first on the restart, I was a little worried because Kyle threw the caution 2 laps early, and I expected 2 more laps of gas at the end. So that's what really made it a fuel race right there. And it was kind of split strategy. Some guys knew they couldn't save it, so they pitted, like Dylan. And then I just fit. I was riding behind Brandon or whoever it was, and I realized that I was good to the end, but I had to run a certain pace. So I ran that certain pace, and I knew Brandon couldn't make it if I was like barely to the good. So I knew really my only competition was Andrew, and I guess Andrew had to save too. So me and Andrew ran the same pace there at the end, and we just kind of finished where we were.
We saw you a couple of times pass Brandon Hawken for the race lead, but even then, it looked like even as the race leader, you were struggling here with the track, with rear grip off the corners, sliding into the wall, brushing the wall, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, from a driver's standpoint, what were a lot of the challenges that you were dealing here with this Montreal road course?
It's just really tough in a car this heavy. Obviously, it's made for Formula cars, so um, yeah, it's just nature of the beast. You ever watch a real life race here, and even in the rain, those guys, they're barely touching the gas, barely touching the brakes. So here tonight, you could be pretty aggressive on both. Not really the throttle, but the brake, you could really get on it if you knew how to downshift. But yeah, it's a great combo. I took a little bit to learn, but once you learn it, it's really fun.
Well, Blake, I mean, that's another win and a notch on the season. And with all these wins and bonus points, how are you feeling with the rest of the season and possibly going into the rest of the playoffs? I mean, getting close to the playoffs with so much bonus points.
Uh, at the start of this year, I thought Derek Justice was going to wipe away with this series, but he's had some bad luck lately. So I guess while he's having his bad luck, I'll take the playoff points and look forward to the playoffs. I don't know how much I've accrued, but I think it's a good amount now. 2 wins in a row.
Yeah, as of right now, probably somewhere in the region, I would say of about 26 to 28 playoff points, I think that you've accumulated here with your 4 wins. One other thing that I wanted to bring up as well is, we were talking about fuel, fuel, fuel. Just how abrasive was the track on the tires? I mean, was it just the fact there was no grip at the beginning all the way through, or did you find a little bit of grip early on and then it just went away at the end of a run?
I would say, well, I don't know. The percentage wise, even at the end of that 20 lap run, where we were, I think we could go about 25 on gas. Like even though we were getting to the end there, my worst tire was 79%. I think on my left rear. So I wasn't really worried about blowing the tire, but grip wise, yeah, I mean it fell off pretty good. I mean if I look here, right at the end of the race or wherever I was trying to save, I would dip into the 42s and I could hot lap a 39 if I wanted to. So, yeah, a decent bit of fall off, but that's expected at a road course like this. And, with the percentages not really wearing too much, I didn't have to worry about that since we were burning so much gas.
Well, your second road course win of the season, your 4th win overall here in the FTF Grand National Series. Congratulations on a great job here today at Montreal, and we're going to let you do some shout outs now.
Sure thing. FTF team is Scuderia Meatball Marinara, Kyle Riley, Sean Butler, new addition to the team. And then, of course, I'm an eNASCAR Coke Series driver, so I'm on Team Dillon Esports there. Got great partners in Coca-Cola, StockX, Beneath, Realtree, Sparko, and then, of course, Austin Dillon. He owns the team. And, yeah, that's about it.
All right, that's Blake Reynolds. He starts first, he finishes first here tonight at Montreal. Congratulations on a well deserved win. Go enjoy it, and looking forward to seeing what you bring to the table when we go to next week's race at Charlotte.
All right, thank you.
And we have our second place finisher here, the guy whose name was on the sponsor of the race. Andrew Schwartz here in front of his home crowd brings it home second place. And Andrew, I mean, the first half of the race before that competition caution looked like you had one of the best cars on the longer run. Was it a fuel concern that kind of tapered off your speed there at the end of the second run there heading to the checkers?
Yeah, I was trying to save some fuel and the tires. I figured the two up there were a little faster than me anyways, but I wanted to make sure I could at least bring home a top 5 in case anything went down, but that was, I'd say, a pretty good run.
When we were talking with Blake Reynolds, the admins had told you guys lap 20 was going to be the target lap for that competition caution coming out, and then they throw it 2 laps earlier, kind of throwing a bit of a monkey wrench into there. Did that take you by surprise and have you kind of have to go back to the drawing board in terms of your strategy?
Entirely. I was pretty mad about that because it was going to be pretty easy if they did it right, but they didn't. But it made it a little bit more interesting, so I'm not going to complain too much.
Yeah, Andrew, it looked like this track, everyone was sliding all over the place. How was it for you just running this track?
I had to run good like 80% to not do that, but it paid off in the end having tires when everyone else didn't.
We saw a couple of drivers take the option about halfway through that second run after the competition caution to come to pit road and get some tires. Were you basically committed to the strategy of running it to the end, or did that idea of that kind of a strategy enter into your mind at any point?
As long as I had fuel, I wasn't gonna pit. The tires didn't wear too terribly. They just got way too hot if you burn them off. So I was committed to running it all the way to the end, even if I ran out.
Well, you bring it home with a solid run of second place here today. You keep yourself solidified up there in the playoff points, and we're going to let you do some shout outs now.
I don't have anything right now, so
All right, that's perfectly fine. But that's Andrew Schwartz. He brings it home second place here tonight at the Montreal Raceway. Congratulations on a great run.
thanks.
And we have third place finisher Brian Mercurio standing by here. 2 straight road course races where he finishes up in the podium. And Brian, it was looking like you were going to finish fourth, but then the 89 runs out of fuel there coming to the final few corners. So you bring it home P3. I mean, looks like you've got a really good road course program. You had a top 3 finish back at Spa. What is it about these road courses that you love so much?
I don't know. Ever since back on my days of NRO3, I always felt that I was pretty good on the road courses. Back in FTF, when they were, well, they still have their NR series, but I guess you could say more in its glory days. My first 2 wins were at Watkins Glen. So I've always had a thing for a road course. I had a little bit of trouble translating it over to iRacing, but been doing a lot of road course racing here recently. The most recent Road to Pro race was at the Roval, and I finished pretty good there in second split. And here in Montreal tonight, I felt pretty good when I started seventh. I knew there was a lot of really fast guys like Blake, Andrew, and Hawken. I knew they were kind of going to be in their own league. But things happen. Hawken ran out of fuel, and I knew if I could just keep it on track, I'd be in a position for a podium. And just happy to get one here tonight.
It's pretty unusual when we go to a road course to not really see any car in the field look clean. Even your car had those battle scars there. I mean, you guys were slipping and sliding around and everything. How difficult as a driver is it to remain focused on hitting your marks when you don't have that much rear grip going out of the corners?
So I knew, I mean, like I said before, kind of still in the road course mindset from running the Roval. But I know if I really just focus on preserving the rear tires, some guys might get me early on in the run. But if you have rear grip and other guys don't at the end of a run, you're just going to have so much of an easier time. It's just going to help you get into a rhythm and everything's going to click a little more. And like you mentioned about the battle scars there, that mid race restart was really tough. I got hit there when Arnold started up front, and just trying to get around him, he ran off track and bumped me wide going through the first chicane. So it was tough, and I was a little dejected by that. But I was glad I was able to just get back in a rhythm, stay focused, pick people off, and finish where I did.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of rhythm, how was it when you got word of, hey, we're pulling the competition caution 2 laps early on you?
So I knew it was going to be close on fuel from the get-go. If that caution came out on the lap it was supposed to, I think everybody would have been good, and there would have been a little bit of a different mindset there. Because I know guys like Dylan All and Frisch, who were ahead of me, ended up pitting. Ultimately, I finished ahead of them. But when that caution came out, I knew it was going to get really interesting with fuel. So I made sure to save as much as I could under the caution, and then throughout the race. Pretty much the entirety from the green flag dropped on the second half of the race. Once I kind of got clear the traffic from the restart and I kind of started to build a gap to the guy behind me, I knew I could start going into fuel save mode a little bit. And I had about half a gallon when the race ended, so I knew I saved just about as much as I needed to.
Well, Brian, in your 3 road course starts this season, a 6th place back at Homestead, that 2nd place at Spa, and a 3rd place here tonight, obviously at Montreal. We've got some other road courses that we're going to be going to nearing the end of the regular season, like Road America and Watkins Glen. Are those like races you've got circled on your calendar as places where you might try and see if you can pick up a win or two before the playoffs begin?
Definitely. Like I've mentioned before, I feel good about the road courses, and I feel like my results have kind of backed that up this season. So I always know I have a chance there. It's kind of interesting because you have some guys like Blake who are just incredibly fast on both the road courses and the ovals, but the road courses can kind of bring out some guys who might not normally run up front. I mean, I consider myself pretty good at the ovals too. But the road courses, I feel like, I might just have a slight advantage over some of those guys who just seem to be consistently winning on the oval. So I know we also have the Iowa road course as a part of a doubleheader coming up. So um, I would like to think I have a really good chance at winning at least one of those. But sometimes like you saw in the mid race restart, you could always have a guy who you don't expect to be up front cause a little bit of chaos. So assuming all things go well and or stay consistent throughout the race, you'd expect to be able to finish good, but you never know. But I do got those races circled on my calendar, and I'm hoping to get the job done here this season.
Well, you made it through the mayhem, as you said. You bring it home P3. You came into this race 4th in the playoff standings. This is going to continue to solidify you up there of making your way into battling for the championship later on this season. And we're going to let you do some shout outs now.
Yeah, I'll give some shout outs to my guys over at Lowline Racing and the Hot Lap podcast. They're a great supporter of our efforts at Lowline, as we got a lot of us trying to compete here in the Road Pro Series. Bar Visuals, I always like to rep his logos on my car. And I mean, that's about it. All the guys over at FTF who put this on every week. I've been racing in this league for I don't even know how many years now, ever since it got brought back. Back in I think it was 2012 or 2013. I've always been a supporter of what Justin and Kevin have been doing, and Kyle and Jake have also been really helpful in the transition over to iRacing. So shout out to them for everything they do to put this on every week. I know Kyle had a little bit of a mess up with the early caution this week, but things happen. So I'm just glad I'm able to race here. It's a lot of fun, really good competition, and I'm just hoping to keep up the good runs throughout the rest of the season.
That's Brian Mercurio. He brings it home 3rd place here tonight at Montreal. Congrats on a great run, and wishing you best of luck next week as you guys are heading to that D-shaped mile-and-a-half of Charlotte.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
And we're going to go outside of our normal thing. We normally just do the podium drivers, but we're going to bring in Brandon Hawken here, who came up just a little bit short. Maybe could have used just a little bit of fumes to get through that final right and left-hander. And Brandon, I mean, I've been in a race with you when it's come down to fuel strategy, and you almost had it right to the perfect amount to make it to the end, but you still bring it home in the 5th position. A solid top 5 day all day long for you. Describe it from the cockpit.
Well, hey Seth, yeah, that was that was a lot of fun. Like at the very start, especially, Blake and I were like basically dead even, and once the tires wore, he got quite a bit better. But yeah, it was really interesting. I guess the yellow got thrown a couple laps early, so um, yeah, I was I tried a little strategy move to pit a lap early just as the pits were closing, and then that's when the yellow came out. So that I was like, okay, that's cool. And then we had a few extra caution laps, so that like I thought I was going to be good on gas, and then coming down to the last like 5 laps or so, I was like, oh man, I'm not going to make it. And so yeah, I just tried to save the best I could. Didn't quite make it, but I'm still okay with the top 5.
We found out that, everyone had been told that it was going to be around the 20 lap mark, and then they throw that caution out 2 laps early. It worked out for you in terms of being able to gain track position, cycle out as the race leader when we went back green after the competition caution. However, had it actually been announced that it was going to be on that completion of lap 18, would you have done the same strategy, or would you have mixed it up a little bit differently?
Yeah, that was the thing because I kind of got confused. I thought the yellow was gonna come out on lap 18 when the pits were closed. So that's what I meant to do. But if I knew it was coming out on lap 20, I probably would have just waited until lap 20 to pit under caution with everybody else because tires are really important, especially at track like Montreal. It's really slick and gets really hard to drive after a little bit. So yeah, I would have definitely waited to come in, and that probably would have been the best way to go.
Yeah, Brandon, it really did look like you were pretty much even up front, and it was looking like you possibly had something to give. I mean, if you didn't run out of fuel, do you think there was anything else you could have done to try to stay with Blake?
um, I don't know. I think overall he was just really, or like he was a lot better at conserving those rear tires because yeah, like we'd be even, and then like yeah, as the tires got old, he just drove away. So I don't. I'd have to switch up my driving a bit, I think, and maybe the next road course we can try that. I can try different like braking methods and stuff. But yeah, that was a lot of fun, and yeah, I can't wait to come back next week.
Obviously, I know you're in Ontario. This track is in Quebec, but regardless, it's a Canadian track. We saw you take the checkers back at Spa, but when you come to a track that's in the Canadian borders, does it kind of give you a little bit more of an added incentive to try and go out and take that checkered flag?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's pretty cool to race and win at your home track, and really wanted to do that again tonight. Yeah, I think Montreal's probably the second closest to me, other than Mossport. So, yeah, that would have been really cool to catch the W here. But yeah, I'm cool with the I'm cool with not doing that though, because the race itself was like it was so good.
Well, you got yourself an unofficial teammate there at the end with the 63 pushing you
Oh
across the
yeah.
line for that fifth position. But you definitely made it exciting down there to the down to the wire, down to the end, those last couple of corners. And we're gonna let you do some shout outs now.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, well, first, I'd like to shout out Ryan Pandicio for pushing me across the line. I don't know if that was legal. Hopefully, we don't get sent to the back, but that was a lot of fun. Blake on the win. He did a great job all night. Andrew, oh shoot, forgetting a few people, but yeah, all my friends at Movano Racing and Primetime Racing. Um, yeah, you guys for the broadcast and all the FTF administrators for everything they do. It's yeah, they put on a good show every time, so yeah, I'm good glad for that.
Well, Brandon Hawken has 2 road course starts this season, both of them inside of the top 5, a first at Spa and a fifth here tonight. Congrats on a great run, Brandon.
Thanks, Seth, and thank you guys.
And with that, that's going to conclude our coverage here this evening from Montreal here. Blake Reynolds is your winner in the Andrew Schwartz Fans Loud and Proud 150K. And I have to say, Sam, a lot of times when we go to this road courses, there's one clear winner, but there were about 4 or 5 guys up there, including Michael Frisch near the end, that we kind of were thinking, hey, he could be the guy that could take that checkered flag.
Yeah, I mean, it really came down to fuel at the end there, and Hawken trying something a little bit different, and it just didn't work out for him. But it was one of those things of you had to try something different if you wanted to try to beat Blake Reynolds, and trying something different just didn't work out. And Blake Reynolds still, he's so quick at these road courses. It's not surprising that he's always on top, but man, it was good to see Hawken putting up a challenge there at the end.
Well, Blake Reynolds continues his march there in the point standings with his 4th win. We saw Derek Justice, Michael Cozy Jr., a couple of the other big three, if you will, come back from what could have been pretty mediocre finishes. Justice came back to finish 12th. Cozy came back to finish in 17th. They carry this rivalry into next week when they will be at Charlotte Motor Speedway for the FTF Thunder 150. It's a special theme race that's going to be going on where drivers will be running paint schemes throwing back to 2004 to 2007 NASCAR esports video games, and STN is going to have the call for that. STN actually has the call for the next 3 races. They'll also be calling Michigan and Chicagoland. We will be back for Flatout Racing Network's coverage at Lucas Oil Raceway Park on the 4th of July. How about that? It's going to be, we're going to have ourselves a little 4th of July barbecue there at Lucas Oil. But that is going to be the next time you will be hearing from us here from the FTF Grand National Series. As always, Sam, appreciate you joining me here. I know it's late at night and we pulled double duty, but appreciate you sticking it out with me.
It was always a pleasure, and this was one of the harder days, but it was still a fun one.
Absolutely was, and had an unbelievable finish there at the end. Blake Reynolds, your winner tonight at Montreal. We want to thank Matthew Rodriguez as well for being our in-car reporter, our in-race reporter, giving us information that we would not have known since we are not down there in the cockpit. So appreciate him for doing that as well. Thank you to all of you for tuning into tonight's race. Hope you enjoyed. Again, we will see you guys on the 4th of July for the next broadcast here for the FTF Grand National Series. You've been watching yet another broadcast here tonight, courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.